source of life and cause of death. Water can wash away clues, dilute evidence, and conceal corpses. For investigators, water can be a cunning opponent. For criminals, a most accommodating ally. For the perfect crime, just add water. Nestled at the confluence of the Red and Assiniboine rivers, Winnipeg, Manitoba is famous for its harsh climate. Yet, since the early 19th century, a steady stream of immigrants have made Winnipeg their home. The pioneers of old Europe have been followed by newcomers from Asia, Africa, and Latin America. And one of those immigrants decided to make his living by becoming a serial killer. It all starts September 11th, 1990. The lifeless body of 27-year-old Bibi Khan is discovered in a large freezer.
She was found by Mohammed Khan, her brother, and he called emergency services. The emergency services people, the fire department, first responders, and that, called police because she was obviously deceased at the scene. So I was in right on the ground floor.
In order to establish the facts, Sergeant Gary Foster of the Homicide Squad interviews the first responders, a few neighbors, and of course, Mohammed Khan. One question that intrigues investigators is, what prevented Bibi from opening the lid?
No lock, and it's just a basic freezer that you lift up the door. It's got the little air seal on it. Apparently, when the responders got there, the interior of the freezer was hot and humid because of the body going in and radiating all the heat from the body. Once she was removed from the freezer, we could see where there had been some fresh caulking applied, which would ostensibly seal up any leaks that there were.
Bibi Khan immigrated from Guyana to Canada in 1986 on an invitation from her older brother, Mohammed. He settled in Canada a few years earlier. They now share a house on Alfred Street. Several factors make the death of Bibi Khan suspicious to the police.
She apparently had been in a car accident and had some back issues, which would, be suspicious as to why she would curl up and get into that freezer to start with, but that was his explanation.
Another question raised by the investigators is whether something could have incapacitated the victim, perhaps chemical fumes from the caulking gun.
Silicone that has a very unpleasant odor. As for the toxicity of it all, I don't know. I don't believe that other than being unpleasant, I don't believe that smelling caulking compound is fatal.
Investigators now consider Bibi's death to be suspicious. Mohammed Khan becomes the prime suspect. They easily obtain a search warrant for the house.
He was not allowed in the house for several days while our investigations went on. And like I say, we went through every vial and every bottle and every tube and of all the things that people have in their house, for repairs and any hobbies they may have.
The police find nothing that could explain why Bibi couldn't lift the freezer door. The autopsy concludes that she died of asphyxiation from an undetermined cause. The toxicology report shows less than therapeutic levels of many different drugs in the biological samples.
With Bibi's death, he looked at it that, well, there's drugs in her system, so she would have been drowsy. She had so many prescriptions that the College of Physicians and Surgeons here in Manitoba looked into her own doctor's prescribing methods. He also made mention that, well, but you have to look at the freezer, and she's in a fetal position, that she couldn't have put herself in that. She was placed there.
The autopsy report doesn't yield any solid evidence as to how and why Bibi died. Searching for more clues, investigators delve into Mohammed Khan's past. they discover some troubling information.
He was divorced, and we'd also found out that he'd been charged with bigamy, and when he was in another part of the country, for a marriage out of a convenience marriage with dealing with immigration matters.
Certain documents seized at his home are of particular interest.
There's life insurance. He moved the mortgage on the house into her name, and she got a mortgage and buys the house from him, so he gets a whack of dough out of that. The insurance was put on her. And during the investigation, it came clear that he didn't pay bills, didn't pay a water bill, didn't pay a tax bill. And the only time that his bills were up to date was when the city welfare stepped in, because Bibi was apparently on welfare.
His gas, natural gas to the home had been shut off, and the home was being heated by about 8 baseboard heaters, electric baseboard heaters. And his gas hot water tank had also been replumbed to accommodate an electric hot water tank beside it so that he could have hot water. And the basement, the house was quite cool when we were there, and there was an electric hairdryer rigged up to keep the plumbing pipes from freezing in the basement.
But the only bills that were always paid on time was his insurance policies. His premiums on insurance were always paid, and those are the only bills in his life that he appeared to pay. So there was insurance, and it was plain to us that he was using her as a bit of a cash cow.
Mohammed Khan is the beneficiary of more than $250,000 worth of insurance policies on Bibi Khan's life. In her will, Bibi describes the extent of her gratitude toward her brother. She makes Mohammed the heir to all her possessions. She explains, "He is responsible for my coming to Canada. He helped me with my studies and my needs. This is why I want to thank him this way."
We investigated this for a long time, and it was some years later in a meeting, about 14 months later, I guess, in a meeting with the chief medical examiner where we were at a loss for evidence. Yeah, it's a suspicious death. We didn't like to close the file, but we didn't have any evidence against him. So, there you go. I mean, Canadian justice is based on evidence, and we didn't have any.
With regret, Sergeant Foster is forced to close the file. After the case is closed, Mohammed Khan tries to claim the benefits from Bibi's life insurance policies. But both companies refuse to pay. They claim that the death of Bibi is suicide. Khan threatens to sue them. Two years after Bibi Khan's death, the insurance companies agree to a settlement. Mohammed Khan receives 55% of the benefits from the two policies for a total amount of $137,000. 3 years have passed, and plenty of water has flowed under the bridges of Winnipeg. Then suddenly, the past makes a surprising return. Why are the police called back to the Khan house? On September 11, 1990, Mohammed Khan finds the dead body of his sister Bibi in their freezer. The autopsy reveals that she died by asphyxiation without any identifiable cause. Her death remains a mystery. For more than a year, Gary Foster and his homicide team look for evidence to charge Mohammed Khan with murder, but they only find circumstantial evidence. Mohammed Khan settles the insurance claim on his sister's life and pockets more than $130,000. On the night of December 26, 1993, police once again are called to Mohammed Khan's home at his request. This is the second time in 3 years that police visit Khan's house.
Computer system of the day, as soon as you put in an address, all the previous events at that address would have come flowing up complete with report numbers and all that. And everybody who went there should have been briefed on, you know, this was a scene of a suspicious death X amount of months or years ago, and you know, just beware of that.
He says he was out with his wife and that she left early to go home, that she must have had trouble unlocking the door, and she is not to be found when he comes home. So he's worried about her and he asks for help regarding basically a missing person.
The missing woman is Mohammed's 21-year-old wife, Sarita Khan. They met during one of his trips to Guyana and have been married for over 2 years.
And police are quick to search the home as well as his yard, including a van parked rear of the lot, and they find Sarita Khan inside the van suffering from hypothermia. And in fact, she has some serious frozen tissue, I believe, and damage to her right foot. This is, again, late December in Winnipeg. Temperatures of 25, 30 below are not uncommon. If she's unable to unlock the door of her home to go inside, one would wonder why you would go to the vehicle, especially if you don't have vehicle keys to start it.
It doesn't seem logical that Sarita would curl up and fall asleep in their van at minus 25 degrees Celsius. Dr. Gordon Giesbrecht studies the effect of hypothermia on the human body.
Well, actually, our bodies are big chunks of meat that really defend temperature well. It takes a lot of energy just to cool, you know, the mass that we have, and we also start shivering, which increases our heat production. That's why it takes so long to become hypothermic. And in cold air, it could take, you know, several hours. So falling asleep in the middle of that in a person without drugs or alcohol is highly unlikely, because it is very, very painful.
Signs of frostbite are obvious on Sarita Khan's foot, but it's unclear how she became unconscious. Sarita is taken to hospital for treatment and released the following day. As part of her recovery, she is told to rest, stay warm, and keep the blisters on her foot clean.
If they were doing the right post-trauma treatment, they'd have been putting her feet minimum once a day, if not 2 or 3 times a day, in a warm whirlpool bath. That is a clearly accepted follow-up treatment for frostbite. Commonly, there are blisters that form on the tissue. So not only do you want to keep it warm and not frozen again, but once you have blisters, sterility it becomes an issue, because you don't want to infect, you know, a blister area if it happens to break. And if you were going to be doing the warm water bath, you would take the bandages off, do the warm water bath, and then dry, and then re-bandage the area.
On January 4th, just over a week since the missing person incident, the Winnipeg police are called for the 3rd time to the Khan residence.
A young woman was found initially by her husband in a bathtub and allegedly had drowned. Mohammed Khan, the husband of the deceased, had pulled the plug on the bathtub during a 911 conversation, and the operator was asking him, of course, to do CPR. Winnipeg ambulance had been contacted and had arrived to attempt resuscitation to the body, and unfortunately, these efforts failed.
The young woman in the bathtub is none other than Sarita Khan.
Those circumstances were very suspicious, and the Bibi Khan investigation, then Sarita's disappearance and recovery in a van, all led investigators to have red flags.
Mohammed Khan is quick to explain to the police how he discovered his wife.
Mohammed was elsewhere. He was at a friend's place, and his wife called him and was saying that, "I'm feeling itchy." And Mohammed told her that, well, take a bath, and repeatedly said, take a bath and then go to bed. You'll feel better. And So he continued doing some errands, and when he got home, she was in the bathtub, but she was underwater. And he called police. Everybody rushed there.
Apparently, everything indicates that the young woman drowned. According to the report from the rescue team, the victim's body was wet when they arrived.
Police told him that, well, your wife's dead, and he expressed at first, he expressed disbelief, but he wasn't emotional. He basically just said, well, how could she be dead? Because the water's still warm.
Khan's question is very intriguing.
The body was cooling already, yet it had rigor mortis, the stiffening of the muscles after death, so that they could not intubate the person. So if I look at the various points that give me this opinion, she's been dead a while, and probably 2, maybe as much as 4 hours, sometime in that. Typically the stiffening of the jaw that prevents putting the breathing tube in takes place in around 2 to 4 hours in temperate conditions.
Khan's comment directly contradicts the evidence noted by the rescue team, not to mention that bathtub drownings are very rare.
So usually the people that die in the bathtub or the shower have some major underlying natural disease that is prone to make them suddenly and unexpectedly not be able to protect themselves. So they've got heart disease, or they have a seizure, or they've impaired themselves with drug or toxins. The natural deaths who happen to die in a tub, they usually don't drown. They have their cardiac event and they just happen to be in the water when they die.
Carrie Armitt, a specialist in forensic identification, examines the state of the bathroom carefully.
Well, it suggested that the scene had been staged. And there was also a towel rack on a glass sliding door that surrounds the tub that had been broken off, and a part of that towel rack was inside the tub. We also noticed that there was a woman's nightie on the floor in the bathroom. However, no towel could be found in the bathroom. We found this odd as well. She may have been in the bathtub, however, it was doubtful that somebody had taken a bath, because in my experience there's usually water in the tub or the drain area for some hours after, and it appeared very dry. There was no water residue at all in the tub.
Suspicious of Mohammed Khan's history and the contradicting evidence in the bathroom, the police look around the house.
Then I remember searching, more of a cursory search of other rooms in the house at that time. We certainly didn't go top to bottom and seize all of our exhibits at that evening. We looked at the position of clothing and just the general layout of the home and the furniture, and was there any evidence of an apparent struggle in the home, for example. All these types of things were looked at. And then ultimately, in an office area, a couple of insurance policies were found, along with papers describing how to use plants for poisons, for example. Various things like that were of interest to us.
In fact, one of the questions they asked is, did you have an insurance policy on your wife's life? And that's when he started getting pretty defensive and basically said, that's none of your business. That's probably more than anything one of the things that put a big question mark with the police and started the whole chain of events to let's investigate this further.
There is enough evidence for police to justify a request for a warrant to do an in-depth search. Mohammed Khan is escorted from the house and is not allowed to return until the investigation is complete.
And I was on a hunting trip up in north central Manitoba, and I was watching the news, and this news story came on. The address, a dead woman found at this address, and I perked up and said, gee, I know that address. And then they mentioned the name, Khan, and I said, okay, this stinks already, suspicious already. And I phoned my bosses and cut my hunting trip short by a few days and headed back into Winnipeg to get involved in this investigation.
Sergeant Foster, who led the investigation into the death of Bibi Khan, is also assigned to this case.
I was briefed on the fact that Sarita Singh Khan was found dead in a bathtub. She'd spent this was a winter in Winnipeg, and she'd spent a night in a van because she couldn't get into the house for one reason or another.
Investigators strongly suspect that Mohammed Khan has murdered his wife.
Everybody would have suspected it, but you can't act on your suspicions in this country, so you have to wait for the evidence.
Is Mohammed Khan a man tragically struck by fate? Or is he a cold and calculating serial killer with a deceptive ability to cover his tracks? Mohammed Khan's sister and wife are both found dead in his house 3 years apart. Investigators suspect the 38-year-old Guyanese immigrant is responsible. The parallels between the two cases are uncanny. Two young Guyanese women, isolated and vulnerable, two suspicious deaths, and two sets of life insurance policies. Sarita Khan's autopsy begins on January 5, 1994, at the Center for Health Sciences in Winnipeg. The forensic pathologist is Dr. Kelly McDonald.
First of all, I would say that I don't approach a scene with the assumption that this is a homicide. It's a suspicious death, a death of interest, but homicide is a ruling that the court makes or that the medical examiner assigns to it. But if there's a death which may not be natural, the more information I have about the person's previous health, their habits, their lifestyle choices, whether they're drug or alcohol problems, when they were last seen alive, when they appeared well, where they were, it's really helpful.
The preliminary examination is complete. Now the pathologist can begin the autopsy.
She was kind of like a tiny, perfect woman. She only weighed 35 kilograms, less than 80 pounds. She was almost exactly 5 feet tall, but she was not malnourished. We will keep track of all the clothing or articles of property that came with the body, photograph all surfaces with and without scales so you can place whatever injuries or findings. We'll seize various specimens from the body, samples of head hair, samples of body hair. We'll look at the fingernails, clip and or scrape the fingernails. In a forensic examination, as opposed to an examination on an in-hospital death, most of your useful information, if it's going to be a death from violence, you're going to find on the surface of the body.
Due to Mohammed Khan's history with dead and missing women, a thorough selection of samples and body fluids are taken from the victim. Dr. McDonald also notes that the victim's skin is perfectly smooth, which contradicts the hypothesis of extended exposure to water in the bathtub.
If she was 2 hours in water, she would be good and pruny. I have no evidence of that. If she was in hot water, not only would she be pruny, but the skin would start to strip, deglove, so the skin of the hands, particularly the palms and the feet, would start to come off. The hair loosens, so you can remove it more easily. It starts to fall out. And if it was hot water, it would warm up the tissues underneath of it to semi-cook them, so it would look like rare steak or slightly cooked ham. None of that was there. So I have no reason to believe she had a prolonged cold water immersion. I have no reason to believe she's had a short hot water immersion. She didn't die in that tub.
But if the victim did not die in the bathtub, what caused her death? Kelly McDonald is aware that Sarita was found frostbitten and hypothermic on December 26. He takes that into consideration so it does not confuse his findings. The signs of frostbite are still obvious, and there are still deep blisters on one foot. But these are not the only marks he finds on Sarita's skin.
This young woman had few petechiae. They were on the mucous membranes of one eye, They were in the nose. They were a little bit on the anterior surface, the front surface of the lungs. They couldn't possibly have been from the frostbite or hypothermic episode the 7 or 8 days ago, because they would have healed. You know, they're tiny. You know, they're pinhead-sized type things. So these were clearly around the time of death. They're commonly found in asphyxial type deaths where there's compression of the neck or compression of the chest, such that we restrict airflow and blood flow within the body. So the significance of the finding depends on the circumstances and the history, not on just that you've got petechiae.
Following the external examination, MacDonald proceeds to the internal exam.
The stomach contents were great interest to me as the investigation. If somebody drowns, one of the things that they may do, not always, but may, is that they will gasp and swallow water during the course of the drowning. So to look to see if the person has watery gastric contents allows you to put a check mark on the positive finding rather than a check mark on the negative finding column. And so her entire gastric contents were saved and examined, and it was just a dry rice curry. It was not watery at all. It was undigested, thick. You could identify almost every rice grain. It was all saved, and it was all went to toxicology. I had no evidence that there was water in the stomach.
Kelly MacDonald's initial findings exclude drowning and suggest an intentional asphyxiation. The autopsy alone doesn't allow him to make a definite assessment as to the cause of death. MacDonald must wait for the toxicology report to make his conclusions. Will the results of the toxicology tip the balance? Investigators are about to make a second and more detailed search of Mohammed Khan's house. Will they find a direct piece of evidence that will link Khan to the murder of his wife? Winnipeg police suspect Mohammed Khan has murdered his wife, Sarita Khan. Nearly 3 years earlier, he was a suspect in the death of his sister, Bibi Khan. But with a lack of evidence, investigators were forced to close the file. On January 25th, Dr. MacDonald receives the toxicology report.
This woman showed traces of all sorts of drug at very low levels. And some of them are relatively common drug, like she had an antihistamine on board, a variety of sleeping aids that you can buy over the counter. So in addition to that, the woman had at least 2 opiates, narcotics, common over-the-counter narcotic available in Canada, codeine, and they had a more potent prescription narcotic which goes under the name of Demerol on board. Again, not huge doses, a little bit less than therapeutic, but 2 narcotics and an antihistamine, all of which are sedating, and they potentiate each other so that the amount of sleepiness this woman may have had may not have been twice because she had 2 drugs. It might have been 3 or 4 times or multiples of what she would have had if she had any one of them. There was also a peculiar and complicating factor, which is that they identified a volatile organic compound called chloroform. Now, people may know chloroform because it was long ago used as an anesthetic agent.
Dr. MacDonald writes his report after meeting with the chief medical examiner.
With the opinion and advice of the chief medical examiner, Dr. Markestein, we attributed causes of death as asphyxiation. And there are many ways that somebody can be asphyxiated. And because of the interest with this chloroform as a contributing but not causal factor, he was advised for me to put in chloroform effect. It was just that asphyxial deaths can be subtle and missed, and it would fit with how to gently kill an intoxicated, tiny woman and leave almost no traces. My opinion that it was a moved body was that I can't square rigor and no skin or tissue changes of prolonged immersion in either cold or hot water.
The conclusion of the pathologist supports the suspicions of the investigators and the prosecutor. Police suspect that Mohammed Khan may have used chloroform to sedate his victims.
In our belief, he's the one that asphyxiated her with an external force and put her in the bathtub.
The coroner then requests that the investigators return to Mohammed Khan's house and look for evidence to support the toxicology results.
They wanted to collect every little bit of evidence they could possibly find that they believed at that point in time, yeah, we're dealing with not just one homicide, we're probably dealing with 2 homicides, the one from 3 years before.
Investigators look for 2 vital pieces of evidence: chloroform and insurance policies. The 5-day search is extremely thorough.
There were some needles and syringes found. I don't believe that Mr. Khan or his wife were diabetics or had any medical need for those needles and syringes, so perhaps there was some drug abuse. So any unknown powders and liquids were seized, and the number of exhibits became huge. There were a number of prescription drug vials throughout the home, including the basement and Mr. Khan's van parked outside. Some of these vials had some pills in them, and some were empty. And there were a number of non-prescription drugs in the home as well. All of them were seized.
The police discover an unexpected and revealing document.
On a end table in the living room were some papers which contained handwritings entitled "The 12 Steps to Commit the Perfect Murder," which we found extremely interesting. And of course, handwriting analysis was done with known samples of Mr. Khan's writing and this particular handwritten material to show that, in fact, Mr. Khan could have wrote this 12 steps to commit the perfect murder. A couple of the 12 steps to commit the perfect murder were, for example, find a gullible girl, convince her that you're a terrific guy, entice her by promising to have a family with her, and impress upon her the importance of having an insurance policy. During hypnosis, confirm validity of reincarnation, nothing to fear, painless death. A search of the house revealed 3 insurance policies, I believe, totaling approximately $500,000.
Apparently there was another name involved. Khan used a pseudonym, a fake name, to be the beneficiary, because the insurance company wants the beneficiaries, when there was a payout, he didn't want his name being flagged as saying, okay, I got money from Bibi Khan, now I'm the beneficiary on this insurance policy.
Strangely, investigators cannot find any evidence in the house to indicate that Mohammed Khan had a job to support himself. Evidence is pointing to the possibility that Khan was living off the benefits from the life insurance policies.
So his sister dies 3 years before, he gets $100,000 plus, and 3 years later that his wife suddenly dies, and there's maybe going to be another insurance payment. During that 3 years and before his sister's death, there were lots of bills that were unpaid, there were lots of bills that were late, but consistently, the only bill in that household that was paid was his insurance premiums on both women.
Police have now seized more than 1,000 pieces of evidence from Mohammed Khan's house, and they may have also uncovered a motive for murder. Will all this evidence link Mohammed Khan to the deaths of Bibi and Sarita? Suspected of murdering his sister in 1991 and his wife in 1994, Mohammed Khan is about to be arrested by the Winnipeg police. Sergeant Foster arrives at Khan's home with a warrant for his arrest.
He's not opening the door. So we leaned on the door and it sprung open, and we're yelling out that it's the police. And he's on the phone to a lawyer. He said, police, we're arresting you for 2 charges, first-degree murder of Bibi Khan and Sarita Singh, and you're going to be coming with us. And his lawyer was on the phone, so I briefly had a conversation with her. We exchanged, she says, you're not going to ask him any questions, he's not going to give any statements. I says, well, giving him the statements is up to him, and our job is to ask questions, so we'll be asking questions. Took him down to our office, and there we had an interview. Now, granted, during the whole interview, he didn't say a whole heck of a lot, and just was cold and calculating, and like I said, had an arrogant attitude about him, and he was only worried that he was hungry and thirsty and wanted some water and some food. We had got from him that he wasn't about to say anything, which is definitely his right, but he still needed to know that we found traces of chloroform in Sarita's brain. And this is a large basis for our murder, and we believe that he committed the murder, and we believe that he killed Bibi as well in the same fashion.
Sarita's body has been waiting for 2 weeks to be claimed for burial, but her family in Guyana does not have the money to repatriate her. Mohammed Khan's lawyer files a request for the body to remain in Canada and be examined by independent experts. The tone is set. The suspect is far from cooperative and will fight the charges one by one. The toxicology from Sarita Khan revealed the presence of chloroform. Additional tests on the samples from Bibi Khan also revealed traces of chloroform.
The Crown's theory was that with Bibi, that she basically was, the drugs would make her drowsy, that then she had, well, they originally thought chloroform, and then she was placed in the freezer and then slammed the door shut, and she just suffocated in there.
As the Crown prosecutor is building the case against Mohammed Khan, some surprising news comes back from the forensic lab. The lab had continued to test other cadavers for chloroform, and they discovered that 80% of the corpses contained the same anesthetic.
It's got a variety of industrial uses, and it's a common contaminant in our water, in our air, and in environment. And if people look for it, they can find it in trace amounts here, there, and all over the place. I, as a pathologist, have great difficulty dealing with that because we don't have standard tables of how much do I carry, for example, right at this moment. So it gives me not information, it gives me noise that just confuses the situation.
So in a sense, what led Mohammed Khan on his legal odyssey through the courts was based on a mistake.
The prosecution drops the chloroform evidence, but with more than 1,000 other pieces of evidence, their case is still very strong. In fact, this case held the record for the largest number of exhibits in Manitoba's history. Mohammed Khan is charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder for the deaths of Bibi Khan and Sarita Khan. The trial begins May 29, 1995. The prosecutor describes his theory of how Sarita Khan was murdered. On the afternoon of January 4, 1990, Mohammed Khan is about to leave home. He makes sure before he leaves that Sarita has taken her medications, a cocktail of analgesics and antihistamines. Concerned about his alibi, Khan goes out shopping to carefully collect receipts indicating the date and times. He then visits a friend to complete his alibi. Sarita calls Khan at his friend's home and she complains of being itchy. He tells her to take her medication and go to bed. Around 5 p.m., Khan returns home to find Sarita in bed. She is half conscious from her cocktail of medications. Mohammed then places a pillow over his wife's face and waits. She is unable to struggle. The murder takes just a few minutes. He then drags Sarita's body to the bathroom. He places her on the floor and stages the scene to look as if he had attempted to resuscitate her from the bathtub. Around 7 p.m., he calls 911. After the prosecutor completes his plausible hypothesis, the defense presents his case to the contrary.
The defense pathologist later on in the trial said something different, that based on the amount of water that came from the woman's mouth when the paramedics came and got her out to try to revive her, he thought that, no, that is consistent with drowning was the amount. And the defense pathologists were basically saying that they believed that there was a good chance that she'd had a seizure, and that's how she died.
A disturbing fact that concerns both victims is that neither has ever complained of abuse by Mohammed Khan. The defense counsel reveals an audio recording that surprises the court.
Bibi Khan had actually recorded her own voice talking about her troubled life, how she'd been raped, how she'd been beaten, how that her family basically would force her to go get some tea, go get some cooking oil, and how will she pay for that? Well, give sex. The only person she wanted to have at her funeral was Mohammed Khan, her brother, because he was the only one in the family that treated her great. And she talked about her brother in these terms. A psychiatrist at the trial said this is a suicide letter that she was doing, but it also showed just how she had this love for the brother who was accused of killing her.
The defense claims that the petechia, or pink spots, found on Sarita's body could have been caused by the hypothermia that she suffered on December 26. The prosecution calls upon a hypothermia expert to counter that argument.
There would be no connection between frostbite on your feet or general body hypothermia on petechiae on your face a week later. No. The only thing where you might have skin coloration issues would be in the frostbitten area.
The presence of petechia on the face proves that Sarita was suffocated. The prosecutor adds weight to the case by presenting multiple insurance policies. On each one, Mohammed Khan is named the beneficiary. The prosecutor then presents the document called 12 Steps to Commit the Perfect Murder. Handwriting analysis shows it was likely written by Mohammed Khan. This paper not only gives an idea of the thought process of the suspect, but it explicitly lists 5 victims, all women, who were killed between 1970 and 1994. The author adds that he will continue to add names to the list until he is stopped. After a long and controversial trial, the jury presents their verdict.
They said, yes, Mohammed Khan is guilty of first-degree murder in both the deaths of his wife Sarita and his sister Bibi. And first-degree murder comes with the result that it's basically it's life imprisonment, no chance of parole for 25 years. So at that moment in time, Mohammed Khan was looking at the very least, the next 25 years he was going to be in prison.
Mohammed Khan appeals the jury's decision. That begins a series of trials and appeals that last more than 5 years and makes this one of the most expensive cases in Manitoba's judicial history. Mohammed Khan's final appeal in the Sarita Khan case is denied. He now lives in Stony Mountain Penitentiary. Due to Khan's life sentence and the excessive legal cost, the Manitoba court decided not to pursue the final trial for Bibi's murder. Mohammed Khan controlled everything in his life: his sister, his wife, their lives, and their deaths. But he chose an accomplice that he could not control: water once again betrays the criminal.